Well, a while ago I did this video, well you should watch because it's great, and I got great reception from it and some requests that I should do another one, so here we are. So if you don't know how this works, it's pretty easy to understand. I get an opinion, which comes from this thread from Twitter, like Anthony Fantana does it. Let's fight! Reply to this with your unpopular JoJo, anime, manga, music, movies, etc. opinions, and I will respond to them on one video form. Let's make it so we disagree and have fun discussing it. Fun fact, 99% of them were JoJo related. In the screen right now, I will either agree or disagree. And at most of them I will elaborate. So before further ado, let's get it. The first one says, Part 4 is better than Part 3 in my opinion. Most of the fights in Part 3 were based off one trick that were solely on the stand, the panlet, with hardly any input from the user. However, not only did Part 4 have more strategic fights, but it also have outside of the fighting. I agree. I believe that Araki in the beginning of Part 4 was trying to go back from the whole world is at risk and concentrate on characterization over hype, huge fights, and he made every character feel as a real setup instead of a big boss fight. In reality, Part 4 is way more complex, way better written, it has way better character than Part 3, and for sure way better stance, which is the equivalent of having better fight. Next one, it says Giorno is a bad protagonist. I disagree with this, but I'm not gonna respond to this immediately. I'm gonna read the next one. I promise it will make sense. The next one says Giorno is an extremely well written protagonist. Y'all just sleep on him because he isn't as flamboyant or as loud personality wise. I agree. I think this explains the last point as well. Some people are into Giorno because they appreciate stuff more, especially stuff that don't need to be loud and directly in your face. So I like Giorno. I have no problem if you don't like Giorno, but I believe he's not only a great protagonist, but he's also a great character. And adding to that, next says Giorno is a great protagonist. He's at least top 3 JoJo. I agree. Yeah, pretty much what he says. Next one says, the one drawback I have when it comes to JoJo is that I feel there is a bunch of untapped potential. I always shown off by how part ended so suddenly. I liked a little more explanation of the character lives after they part. Also, connections between parts could have been better. This is an extremely interesting comment. I disagree, but the explanation of it is gonna be very interesting in my opinion. I believe that a piece of art should not be explained by the artist, because once the artist explains his point of view, to many of the viewers that becomes the only point of the view. But in reality, every single viewer should create his own point of view in the art. The mysterious aspect of JoJo, where we don't know what happens to Josuke, we don't know what Giorno does after Part 5, and even in some of the one-offs and some of the novels that are written, there's still a lot of mysterious stuff going around, which I believe is the most important stuff about JoJo. The reason why I can spend at least 1 year being interested in one good anime series, but I can spend my 3-4 years or even more being interested just in JoJo, is because there are so much discussion around it. What happened here, what happened there, what if this happened, what if that happened, but none of this would be possible if Araki did what he said. So I believe that JoJo having untapped potential is not only a great thing for it, but I believe it's one of the best things that Araki could ever done. And I am grateful that he didn't just explain everything, because that would have made the story and the community way less interesting. Next one says, Jesus is a work of art and the best narrative in a Kanye album. I agree. Jesus is amazing. When I first heard Jesus, I was confused what was Kanye going through. I always knew that this was his frustration album where everything went down on him. But now I understand that this album was made after him being tired of the industrialized way that society is marginalizing artistic work, and him specifically, and how he feels that despite doing so much for this world, he's getting so little back. So the only way that his philosophy could evolve as an artistic person is to put himself above everyone. That's how Jesus is built on. It has electronic distorted themes talking about political industrialized topics like how we are slaves to these big companies and how our entire health is consumed by the home fact that we look more at brands than we look at quality, and how at the end he was giving everything, sacrificing everything just for love. Jesus is indeed a masterpiece. Next one. I think Stone Ocean is better than Steel Ball Run.
And I've never said this unironically, but I think this will be the first time I actually say it unironically and mean it. Kill yourself.
Next one. Journey's theme is overrated and every other main JoJo's theme is superior. I disagree. I do believe that Journey's theme is definitely over discussed. We got so many memes out of it and it's overly popular. I would say it's the only main character theme in anime that is this popular. It can literally compare to the popularity of other anime intros and endings. That is amazing. But that doesn't dispute the quality of it. Journey's theme is still incredible. It is amazingly produced, composed, and it fits incredibly with the theme of the part. So despite being overly heard and extremely popular, hating on the popular is something I would never do. I love Journey's theme, and even though it's hard to click into 5-10 videos without hearing it, I will still love it. Next one is by Andy. Andy says it's okay for the main JoJo to take a backseat for the sake of fleshing out other main characters. A lot of people dislike Josuke or Giorno because Koichi and Bruno feel like the main characters, when in reality every character is getting screen time. I absolutely agree. This is a great point. I think this is absolutely necessary in parts when the main character and the background characters are groups. So that is part 4 and part 5. I have absolutely no problem with Koichi because Koichi is the perfect example of fleshing out Josuke sometimes, or Giorno being fleshed out by Bruno or any member of the squad, because once you're dealing with a group, I think that is beautifully put that Araki can take the risk to do that and not just be the main character. I absolutely admire them, but I still prefer JoJo when there are only 2 protagonists. So there isn't a group, but there are just 2. For example, I think part 7 does this perfectly because the absolutely perfect combination of Johnny and Gyro is beautiful. We got another one from Andy. He says Cesar Zeppeli is the worst jailbro. He's introduced as a huge asshole and never grows beyond that. His interactions with Joseph are only implied and glossly over quickly. People only like him because of his death that was sad. I agree. I made a video, you can see it on the screen right now. You should watch it right now. It's on my channel called The Problem with Cesar Zeppeli. It's also in the annotations right now, and I explained everything what he said in more detail. Damn Andy, you have some great opinions, man. You haven't missed so far. We got another one, and the last one from Andy, who says Anasu is a character that gets shit ton of hate. He comes off as a creepy character to Jolin early in Stone Ocean, but by the end it's evident he loves Jolin for the right reasons, for her strong will, personality and determination. He gets too much hate. I agree. Damn man, you're great. I believe that Anasui's characterization and love to Jolin is more complex than a one-dimensional thing that people make it out to be. In the beginning of Anasui's characterization with Jolin in Stone Ocean, I believe that his love was, I love you Jolin because I need you. But as the Stone Ocean progressed and as Anasui characterization got politicized with the theme of Stone Ocean in general and with Jolin as a character and personality to his life, he doesn't need Jolin. But you know what? He needs Jolin because he loves her. And that is Anasui, my friend. And this has to do with that quote that I said. It's from a book called The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck that I read recently. It's a psychological analysis on some really heavy topics, and one of them is love. And I highly recommend you to read the book. It talks about the concept of loving because you need and needing because you love. And I think it relates to Anasui's character and our daily lives as well. Damn man, I really want to be your friend. You have great opinions, my bro. And the next one is from Bean. He gave a couple of opinions, and to be honest, I don't really care about the first and the second, but I just wanted to quickly put his tweet here about the third because it's great. He says that Us is a shockingly bad movie and I don't know how it get any critical acclaim. I agree, and I'm just gonna quickly move from this because I don't want this to get controversial to people who watch Us, but that movie is like weird and not good. Why do you like? The next one says the system of stands are bad, and I agree with this. There is a great video done by X-Force who explained this a while ago and explained how it's just random, not thought well, and overall maybe a good concept but bad executed. My favorite stuff about stand is that it's not a one-dimensional power system, but it's a rock paper scissors one, and it just wouldn't work with this kind of system, so it's fundamentally flawed. The next one says part skippers are fine as long as they go back and watch the parts they skip. I agree with this. I 100% agree. The community's overreaction to this comes from many different reasons, but I honestly think it's stupid, toxic, and most important than all, it just shows the immaturity of you. You can watch whatever you want, however you want it. There are no rules, no gatekeeping, and there will never be. The moment there is gatekeeping and rules to how I watch a medium, ultimately I will never watch that medium. Next one comes from a very special man, Malvin or Mladen, depending how you want to say his name. He has been a supporter of the channel and I really appreciate him, so I'm gonna read a couple more from him. Joseph is the worst rated JoJo, yet top 3 entertaining wise. I agree. This is a really woke opinion in my opinion, because a lot of Joseph fans take when we say that it's the worst written as a complete offense, like we are dismissing his good attributes. No, Joseph is still a fun character. JoJo 1 through 3 isn't as great as anything, but they are just alright. I agree. I mentioned this on my early unpopular opinion videos as well. Hunter x Hunter is easily better than parts 1 through 6, but 7 is on the same level as Hunter x Hunter. I disagree. I think there are parts of Hunter x Hunter that can be applied to the comment you just said, but also there are a lot of parts of Hunter x Hunter that are not that as good as even the early parts of JoJo. Funny, Valentine was not the hero of Steel Ball Run. Obviously, if anyone says that, they're wrong. This isn't an Diavolo, Doppio are better than Pucci. I agree. Part 5 and 4 are equally well written and both better than 1 through 3 plus 6. I agree. This is an actually pretty woke opinion as well, that I would appreciate a lot of JoJo fans having, if not all of them. Jolin is the top 3 JoJo. This is a disagree. Jolin is the top 4 JoJo at best, but ultimately she's a top 5 JoJo because we have 2 Josukes, Giorno and Johnny. Weather Report is underrated. I disagree. I don't think that the Weather Report is underrated. Sure, he's underappreciated, but not underrated because every single person who talks about Weather Report considers him a great character, but he needs to be talked more. Dio as a whole is a very good antagonist, yet totally overrated, and most people rate him that high mostly because of his meme. I agree, but still he's a very good antagonist. If you haven't seen my Dio video, you must watch it. Johnny is a top 1 JoJo character. I agree. I think that Johnny is better than any other protagonist, side protagonist, and villain written wise. Mista as a character is kinda better than Giorno, and Giorno is amazing. I disagree. Bruno and Giorno carry part 5 in terms of writing. Mista is entertaining, he's good written, but nothing special compared to Giorno and Bruno. Cesar is mid, if not trash, we discussed this earlier. Vamu was the best written character in part 2. I disagree. I enjoy Vamu way more than Cars. I think Vamu had way better fights. I think Vamu has a better design, and in every way I like Vamu more than Cars, but I do believe that Cars has a better backstory, is better written, and also Stronheim is actually better written than Vamu as well. Koichi is better than Okoyasu. I agree. This is some personal preferences. I think they're both equally as good written, but I like Koichi more than Okoyasu because I appreciate improvement, despite Okoyasu being one of my favorite Jobros, like top 5. Rohan equals to top 3 best written part 4 character. He's definitely a part 4's top 5 in terms of writing as well, but if you want to top it to top 3, he can be there. Depends on preference. Thank you Malvin or Mladen for contributing to this video. Appreciate it. Next one says, the Araki forgot meme, it gives people false perception to the newcomers and the story is filled with plot holes and forgotten plot point, which is not true if you actually paid attention. People see something they don't understand and make it seem like Araki has amnesia. I more than agree with this. Shockmeister made funny videos. I do believe that his videos are incredibly funny, and some of his scientific videos are actually even complexly going into the JoJo lore the way it needs to be and in the way people need to take it seriously in the terms. But I do believe that his comedy looks too serious for people who just come to the series, and it shouldn't exist the way it is presented. The Rocky Forgot memes to me are just as casual and just as cringe as Kono Dioda memes at this point. When I see someone use it still in 2020, I just cringe, and usually I just cut relations to that person. Next one says, Jolin is just as good as Steel Ball Run. I disagree. I absolutely am irritated by this kind of comments simply because we give Jolin such good praise. It might not even be as good as we look at in the grand stretch of things, but we take appreciation in the simplicity of the nature of the characterization of the characters. We take home to those characters, and I like part 8, but don't push this kind of agenda because it absolutely hurts. You can like Jolin more than Steel Ball Run, but Steel Ball Run will always be better than Jolin. Doesn't matter how many chapters there left, doesn't matter how good of an ending it has, it just doesn't matter. said that Steel Ball Run is the best JoJo part. It will always be. Jolin is top 4. It can be even top 2, but it will never be better than Steel Ball Run. Next one says, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but JoJo is underrated in so many areas. Since the fandom focuses so much on the memes, which is not a bad thing really, because of that people forget how great the JoJo series is, and I feel it's just reduced of memes here and memes there. This comes because even if you look at the history of JoJo, the most popular part always was the early parts like part 3, and this explains a lot when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, because we know that part 4, part 5, part 7, 8 are better than part 3 in every way possible, but they like that because of the grand ideas, because people are there for a classic shonen jump, but JoJo has so more to offer, the complexity of the characters, the way that is presented, the amazing fights, the feels you get, like even in the greatest parts of JoJo's like Steel Ball Run, people still appreciate like, oh my god, Johnny and Gyro have such cool character designs. That's amazing. I like their character design just as much, if not more, than you will ever appreciate. But I also love minor things about the Steel Ball Run, like I love the aspect of fatherhood. That is a really underrated aspect, how it affected the 3 main characters, how Gyro's father, Johnny's father, Valentine's father all affected who they became. Or I even love the deep, complex love that Steven Steele and Lucy Steele have for each other, that bounds the barriers that love isn't defined by anything, literally anything. And all of these things are what I call great themes. But still, people appreciate memes and simple stuff. I don't care, because to me, those people are not important. Next one says, everyone argues whenever Johnny or Valentine was the bad guy, but saying Johnny was bad or Valentine bad devalues the nuance of writing in Steel Ball Run, and there is more to it than one guy being good and the other being bad. Thank you. I think this is the problem not just with manga and how we analyze complex mangas like Steel Ball Run. This is the problem with real life stuff. We see it as white and black, but in reality there are infinite amount of colors you can apply to anything, an infinite amount of situational things that you can apply to everything. There is no such thing as a hero or a villain in Steel Ball Run. There is no such thing as a good or bad character. There are selfish, selfless actions. There are no such thing as a selfless or selfish character in Steel Ball Run. Everything is complex. Everything is human, everything is real, everything is just like you will see in real life. Next up, Cesar gets way too much unnecessary hate. I disagree. I think Cesar is perfectly hated because he deserves the hate. He's pretty much a one-dimensional character that pretty much proves the point that part 2 wasn't ready to be created as a part the way it did, and it has many flaws. Second one says Jonathan Joestar is underrated. I disagree with this as well. I think that anyone who talks about Jonathan Joestar says valid things about him. It wasn't the most interesting JoJo, no matter what we, because I love Jonathan Joestar, see in Jonathan, he isn't anywhere as cool, as better written, or as important as any of the other JoJos in the grand scheme of things. You can consider him very cool, you can like him a lot, and I appreciate a lot of people who have him in the top ranks of my favorite JoJo list, but anyways, he is perfectly rated. He deserves the boring critiques, he deserves the critiques where they say that he's not as cool, because everything is valid, but I also, when people see more in him and see the absolute tragedy written into his character, I appreciate it too. And the third one says that the first 2 openings of JoJo are better openings, and it's not even close than for the rest of them. As I don't have a favorite, I will never have a favorite. I love every single one of them equally, but when you say that it's not even close, that is the part that irritates me, because every single JoJo opening is amazing. Even the late JoJo 1 openings, like literally all of them can be considered than any of your favorite anime's openings. They are just that good. Next one says, Part 6 is underrated, and the people who criticize it now will be saying the greatest ever when the anime comes out. Jolin is the second best JoJo and the best female protagonist of all time. I disagree. I love Part 6, I think it's a great part, I think it has great moments, I think it has some of my favorite characters in the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, in the entirety of manga, but I will never like Part 6 because of the anime more. I like Part 5 just as much before the anime, I like it just as much in the manga before the anime even existed, and I liked it just as much when the anime came out. The Part 6 anime will not change even a single bit of my mind in Part 6, it will never become my favorite part, it will never be underrated, and most importantly of all, Jolin is never top 2 JoJo. There are Giorno is better than Jolin, Josuke is way better than Jolin, and Josuke 8 is way better than Jolin, and Johnny to be compared to Jolin is literally an insult to what writing is. Best female protagonist of all time? Sure, that's a W for JoJo, but never second best JoJo, and part 6 is never underrated. Moving on from that, I don't know how unpopular this is, but part 4 is at least one of the best parts, like top 3, and I absolutely agree with this. There is nothing I can add to this is just a perfect statement. Next up, part 5 is the worst part. I disagree, and the fact that you still argue and have this opinion on twitter.com should be a proof that democracy is the worst leading system. Thank you. Next, part 1 is great. It sets out the ground base for the story, but it had to focus a bit more on Jonathan's childhood years, and Stone the Line and Bruford argue that people would like it more. I agree, part 1 is good. It will never be the best JoJo part, but it still has very entertaining and good elements to it, and I honestly believe that it deserves, and sure, even the hate is justified, but it's a very great part, so don't hate on part 1. And the last one says, low-key, the JoJo novel Purple Haze Feedback has more of an enjoyable read than part 5.
And I've never said this unironically, but I think this will be the first time I actually say it unironically and mean it. Kill yourself.